everyone, and welcome back to Management Diaries. I'm Denile Doyle. This is MHN's Property Management podcast, where we get into the real side of property management from what's working in leasing and maintenance to the resident experience to leadership lessons, business strategy, and everything in between. Today, I'm talking with Jim Cunningham, president of Marquette Management. Jim has been with the company since 2011. He became partner at the firm in 2012, and most recently, he's stepped into the role of president in 2025. So he's been right in the middle of the firm's transition and just period of growth as they bring in new tech and expand into new markets. So we're going to talk about Jim's approach to AI in property management and his approach to innovation. Of course, AI is the innovation everyone's talking about this year and likely next year. So, we're going to talk about just how property managers can take advantage of it without sacrificing that human touch and sacrificing kind of the work that on site teams are doing. So, Jim, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It's great to have you.
Well, great. I'm glad I can join you today. So thank you for having me.
Okay, great. So, I'd love to start by by asking you to tell us about your role at Marquette.
My role at Marquette primarily is all the operations of our company, and my primary responsibility is really to make sure that we are as cutting edge as we can be, but primarily responsible for our people and how we're interacting with our residents. And we always want to be the best place to live, work, and invest. So that's our focus. It's one of our cores as a company. And my job is to make sure that we are doing that. So and whatever whatever we're doing as a company, that those philosophies are always kept, and that we're moving forward in that way.
Yes, I love that you said moving forward because I know that, Marquette really takes this very like forward-looking approach and, whether it's expansion into new markets, whether it's new like tech, which is what we're going to talk about. So that's really important, that's something that you're focusing on in your role. I would love to know, Jim, generally, right? What is your philosophy on using technology to enhance a process versus when we should not rely on technology and when it really should be people leading a process.
I really kind of believe technology should really elevate the experience for somebody. It should really help us and help our teams, with those tasks that are more mundane or can help us really um, create an environment where we can then pivot to allow that human touch to be still there, that we're not so bogged down with those day-to-day things that take us away from the fact that, oh, I've got all this other things to do. So we need to keep in mind that the whole purpose of all this great technology and this great AI that we're looking at, that the whole focus leads us back to where, because we're in the end, we're a people business, the multifamily world. This is a people business. This is where people live. So in the end, this is what it's all about. And how do we use that great technology to enhance that and to really create that environment where we can leverage all that great technology to create those connections and to create that great place where they can work and they can live. So
Yes, absolutely. It really is. You said this is what it's all about. It is a people business. It's a people first business. Multifamily operations, property management. You can't really, it doesn't exist without people, right? So it's very hard to kind of say we're going to not have that be an important component because it just is. So thanks for sharing that lens that you're thinking about technology through. Let's talk about it as it relates to Marquette's portfolio, right? Where do you see that kind of in your portfolio? Where do you see that AI and technology helps you to elevate your operations?
You know, you know, different areas of it, when we really look at from an AI standpoint, areas where I don't see AI having the greatest value is maintenance. Because the one thing AI is never going to be able to do for us is to fix a toilet. It's not going to be able to turn a unit, at this point. So maintenance guys don't have to worry about AI. It might be able to help us schedule turns, might be able to do things like that, but that's one area where we don't have to worry about that because that human touch is always going to be there. It's really that front end leasing funnel. It's going to be that after hours leasing, coordinating shows, all the before they get to the site. I'm still not I think the AI piece, I'm still not I still don't love those self-guided tours. I'm still struggling with that. That might be due to my age and things like that because you can't take care of an objection. AI can't take care of an objection if they you can't talk to them. And I know there's going to be QR codes that people can click on and AI can answer these questions, but they can't answer a question. How does it feel to live here? Only a leasing agent can do that. But AI can certainly help those questions after hours. Hey, yes, you can put a king size bed in this room and things like that. So, and it all comes back to that balance, the balance between using the AI, but really that that front end leasing side and the post with the going through your lease process. AI is a great part about that. And all the detail and the accuracy of AI, where when the human touch back in the day when I really started in this business, we had a one write system where you're writing everything down or you're typing everything and you had these multi-page, you don't have to worry about that anymore. AI can fill all this stuff out. You can, it's getting to the point where you can speak into it and it's typing it for you, where you don't have to worry about the accuracy of stuff, which is incredible. And when accounting and is accounting involved, you're not going to have to worry about certain things. Their residents are going to put their payment information, it's going to process in, and it's going to help with all that accuracy, checking general ledgers and things like that. There's so many wonderful things in there. That's really where I think it's going to be wonderful.
You bring up a great point about if the prospect asks, well, how does it feel to live here? Right? That's what's the answer? Who answers, right?
Right.
That's a great point. Sometimes you kind of think things might be a good match or a good fit, but sometimes they really end up not being such a good match, and kind of you see the outcome and it's not what you had envisioned. So have you ever used a tool or implemented something where it just didn't really go quite as planned, or where you saw like your staff kind of struggling with it, instead of it making things easier for them, it actually ended up like making things more complicated?
Yes. We've had a couple of those. We actually at the beginning of this year we piloted a few AI tools that we thought were really going to be game changers for us. And the tough part about this is we're in our big ivory tower up here. We're making the decisions. We think this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. We push this down to our site people, and I'm as the president of this company, and I've been in this business for really way too long, probably. And I make all these decisions. And by the way, I've been in this business for 40 years now. I'm a little way older than I might look. I'll thank my dad for that. And I've never leased one apartment, and I make these decisions on what we're doing. Isn't that terrible? It's a
Oh
horrible
my
thing.
gosh.
So isn't that terrible? So, but I got all these smart people with me, and then we push these things down to the site levels, and we think this is because we listen to these great salespeople that tell us this is the way it's going to happen. And then the site people say, this is ridiculous. You guys think this is a good idea? We're spending all this extra time. You think this is helping us? This is causing more work. Now we got to follow up with this AI tool is sending us these reminders to do this and this and this. And before it was as simple as us doing this. So yes, so we did these AI tools. They said it was going to save all this time for us, and we found out that in the end, it wasn't really saving us all this time. Residents were getting these multiple email check-ins for something that was really not as important as we thought it would be.
Mm.
And we decided that in the end, it wasn't a good our thought on it was, hey, we have this suite of things. It should cause us some efficiencies where we can use that time in a better area. And in the end, it didn't. The good thing is we did try. The better part of that was instead of us deciding now, we we're much more mindful now going forward of using more beta testing and pulling site level people in, not using regionals to test it. I'm sure we'll get into that and other questions and all eventually. I'm bouncing all over the place right now because I get a little jazzed about this stuff. So, but it's very interesting because there's so much here because so many of these companies want to come up with these great ideas because we're so tip of the iceberg with AI right now. Everybody's trying to come up with a different widget or a different thing that can solve this problem for you and solve this problem for you, but they don't realize that solving this problem creates another problem somewhere else. And there's integration that doesn't, we're a Yardy shop and doesn't work with this thing and doesn't connect with this thing. And then, and then we have to work through that. Does it work with your primary PMS system, or it doesn't, or you have to look at another PMS system. So, you know, if this is all this great information is so incredible, but it's a long way. I'm going to land this plane now. You know, it's that yes, we have done, and I think that it's so much different than when you're back in the day when you were choosing a more simpler approach. There's just so many, and AI has changed so much that, and it's going so fast. The ability to look at this stuff, and there's so many people that just give you so many free trials, and I think we've gotten a little too carried away with doing too many, and the amount of stress we're putting on our site teams with trying too many things. So, and I think that's our biggest takeaway this year. Hold on, we got to really vet what we're going to try and not try every single thing because everybody will give us a chance to free trial. That's the that's all they're doing right now. Try it for free, 6 months, try it for free. They don't care because they put money into developing it, but the cost of doing these AI things is so cheap. Free is nothing anymore. I mean, it's not nothing, but they know if they can get you a hook, they can make their real money there. So
Right. They can get your business
yeah,
once after you've used it for 6 months, are you really going to want to,
right.
switch?
After your employees love it.
Hmm.
Now, conversely, we also have tried some products that have really worked well, and it's one, we're working through one right now, which um, um, really could be a really big game changer for us on the leasing side. Again, the ability for a resident to interact very easily with it. It'll help the leasing process, and it saves leasing time. So it's saving all kinds of time without impacting that personal touch. So there's a lot of positives on that one, where we weren't successful on the one, we have a lot of success on the other. So that was a positive. But we tried so many things this year. We had a so I honestly I think it was a good year for us to learn that we did a little too much. We got some successes, but I think one of our successes, well, we learned a lot about failure this year. So I think that was a positive in some way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that you kind of realized, like, came to the realization, you were able to kind of discern that, right, after trying all those different things. What it makes me think about, as you were saying, you know, like there's so many options, there's so many systems, right? So many widgets. But it sort of makes me think about someone who's like joining the gym for the first time, right? And you go into the gym, there's so many machines, and then if they're like, "Oh, I'm going to try everyone," it's
Right,
just like what, right?
right,
No. And so yes, that to your point, right? Like too many like new things and new systems could eventually kind of be a little bit overwhelming. So but it's great that you realize that and you're like, okay, we've got to do, you said we have to do more testing. So we kind of have to be more thoughtful as we're selecting which ones we really want to test out and not just like, oh, well, they're giving it to us.
Right.
They're letting us try it. Why not, right?
Well,
Um,
and one of our challenges or blessings, depending how you look at it, we're not one of these huge companies. We're a smaller company, so we have to use our teams and our regionals. We've got some core people that we can help with, but we're using our marketing teams. It's a marketing product. We're using our CapEx teams if it's a maintenance related. We don't have an AI team. We've got some of these huge companies. That's all they're doing right now. They've got a whole department focusing on this. Smaller companies like us, and like most of the companies in our industry are our size or smaller. Very few of the top 50 are the top 50. There's hundreds and thousands of companies more like us that we've got to figure it out on our own. So
mhm.
it's a little bit harder for us. I think it's a little more fun at our size than it might be for some of the bigger players, but that's neither here nor there. But so we have to be much more selective on what we can do. We don't have the luxury of having a whole team to be vetting all this stuff at once. So,
You're being very mindful of your teams because not everything is going to work because it's different when when you actually start using it for its intended use, responsible adoption, right? Like,
right.
doing that responsibly. So how can operators kind of avoid, and maybe you kind of touched on this a little bit, but like letting technology and letting AI like become kind of a crutch or just to like become something that is being used in in areas where it's not really the best place to use it just because it's available.
Well, I think if they care about their residents and they care about their employees, they can't. They have to understand that the purpose of AI is to help and support and to give their teams the opportunity to spend more time with more touch points with their residents when it is important because there's different resident bases, different cohorts. I love that word, even though it's such a dumb, it's really a dumb word, but I just love using it sometimes.
It's very
Uh,
academic.
it really is, isn't it? So I should stop using it. But people like my age, I hate when it says hit the next button. I just want to talk to a live person. And there's people at a certain age, they just want to talk to a live person. They want to lease, they want a leasing agent to take them through there. They want to have the time to do that. They don't want to keep talking to an AI person. Now, I will admit, some of the AI over the phone leasing agents that I've tested recently are so incredibly lifelike. I tested one at a recent conference I went to, and it was so good that I thanked him, and I knew I was talking to an AI. It was so good. It shocked me how good it was. So it is incredible where technology is going. It was unbelievable how good it was. So that does
Wow.
scare me a little bit. The whole AI,
Yeah.
there's a scary part is, but we as in leadership roles, we have to be very mindful of the fact that this has to be supportive, and it is a tool that we can use that has to be supportive of our site teams and not take away. And we cannot scare our site teams into thinking this is going to replace them or they're not going to have a job, because that is not the case, because there's always going to be a place for them. Now, the reality is, um, there are going to be in the future, there are going to be adjustments. No, I never want to be part of this industry. If you walk into a community center and there's a kiosk there and there's nobody there, no, I don't want to be part of this industry, and I don't, because where somebody's going to live, it's what a terrible day it's going to be if that's the way this industry is going, and it's not. I don't believe it's going to go that way, because if it starts going that way people are doing it, you lose that human touch, you lose that touch. That is a terrible thing. So I do not want that to go that way. So we have to be good stewards with that AI and the use of it to create those touch points for our leasing agents and our managers and our support personnel. That's what we have to do. We have to be very good about that. We can't allow, the movie Terminator to happen where they become self-aware and all of a sudden, that everything takes over. We have to be good about it's our responsibility as leaders in this industry to create an environment where AI is a tool and a support to create better environments for our employees and for our residents.
Yeah, I mean, let's not have a Terminator in real
Yeah,
life. I'm with
yeah,
you there.
yeah.
That exchange you had with was it a chat bot or at the conference?
I would love to give them credit for. I can't remember what it was, but they allowed us to call in, and their new Lumina might be called, and it was so realistic. I could not believe it. It was shocking. I was just shocked. So, and I think they're just now coming out with all of it. And they said
Mhm.
it's really kind of, but I was really shocked at how, I was very shocked at how good it was. So, and now it could be that they were just, I was shocked at how you could try to trick it and how accurate it was. And it was really shockingly good. Now, maybe I wasn't good enough to trick it enough, but I was very surprised at how well it handled the questions I asked. Now, in fairness, it was specific property,
Hmm.
and they said the key to this is you loading all your data in for
Hmm.
this your property. So the more data this AI has, the better it can answer your question. Makes sense. So the more information it has, it can draw, and it's part of that learning AI. The more it's used to, the more it gets used to it, it can do that. It can answer those questions better, and it learns,
Hmm.
from that, and it can answer those questions better and becomes more natural in answering it. I went, oh my gosh, this is unbelievable. So,
Yeah.
and and especially if you think about it after hours,
Right.
when our our employees aren't there because, inherently we're not great at answering calls on site.
Right.
Typically, that's one of the things that we're historically in our industry, we're not great at answering calls on site because residents come in
We're busy. You're
and
busy.
we can never have enough staff at a certain given point. At, one per 100 units standard. It's been a standard forever. Is that going to change someday with AI? Probably at some point, because if you can have an
Hmm.
AI to that point to help with those calls, incoming leasing calls, it might be so they can be freed up for those personal interactions where they are there if it becomes that good. So I lost track of what I was talking about because I get so geeked out on some of this stuff. So I'm sorry.
You get jazzed up,
Yep,
Jim.
I do. I
Don't.
get must be the jacket.
You mentioned early on about what decisions you're making, right? Like at the corporate level and how sometimes in doing so and in choosing tools for your teams, there can be a disconnect like before when it kind of trickles down to your teams, they're like, wait a minute, this is not what you think it is, you know? So, have you seen or do you think it's possible for technology, for these AI tools to have any kind of like unintended impact even on your teams? Is that something that you've thought about?
The development and growth of our employees, because our normal path is that, let's say in the management office is, leasing agent goes to assistant manager, goes to manager. All of a sudden, we have all this great technology that can answer leasing questions, read the lease, analyze all this information, maybe even analyze financials and all. And all of a sudden, we're taking away all this great learning tools from our leasing agent and maybe these assistant managers and even our managers. And we're not creating that foundation to create our next generation of leaders. And that worries me in a lot of ways. So how do we continue that development of all these leaders while using these AI tools, and how do we balance that? I keep going back to that word balance, and how do we balance these great tools and continue to drive our leaders and train them, that we don't rely on this so much that we're taking away our training, and for them to understand, the financials, they understand what the lease is and how to read the lease, and understand everything about fair housing, that they that AI takes all that away from us. So that's that is probably one of my greatest fears is, do we take that away? Do we take that learning? Do we take that development away from our all of our teams?
Yeah, that's an important concern, Jim. And so especially specifically when you think about the learning, right? Because AI can learn everything, right?
Yes.
So it would be so easy, like for probably for staff or for teams to not feel like they have to learn everything, probably because AI knows everything anyway, right? So there could be that kind of, where maybe they're not feeling that urgency of staying kind of on top of those things and keeping up with that knowledge, like you said, and keeping up with the training, right? Yeah, that's really important.
Yep.
Um, what about guardrails? Are you using or have you used any guardrails as implement these tools?
That's another absolutely we have, and I think it's one of those things that we're setting policies and procedures in place. I think for the first time, it's one of those things I almost feel like it's quarterly. We have to adjust these as we learn more about AI. We have Chat GPT policies now that we never thought we were going to have to worry about, how we're using, what they can use, what levels certain division heads and or site levels can use. We're a Microsoft shop, so it's only Copilot. We can't have everybody using everything. And I anecdotally, I've got team members that were never using Chat GPT, and then all of a sudden I get these emails and I'm say, "You think I don't know you're all of a sudden using Chat GPT?" And all of a sudden they're sounding like they're a professor at Harvard. I went, "Wow, I guess I'm working for you now." So, it's very interesting to see that, like, people don't, I know that's not your work product, and the Chat GPT is a great place to get information from, but it goes back to that last question that we were just talking about. Do you understand what you just created? Do you understand, even though that created it, do you understand what you created? And if you do, great, that helped you and it might save you. It goes back to that time saving that AI can do. That is great. But do you understand it? And can you apply what you just sent to me? So I kind of tied in the last two questions. So guardrails are very important, and they're going to have to be flexible, and they have to be thoughtful, and they have to be controlled at this point. So because we don't know what we don't know at this point.
That's really important. I hadn't thought about that as being kind of a drawback too,
Right.
right? Because, you just say, okay, well, it's all here, and that's, you hope for the best, but if you
Right.
don't understand it, how is it, and how is it really helping you? So that's an important risk, I guess, that you're calling out that operators could be underestimating. Thank you. Jim, I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Great. So did I, very much.
Yeah, this was great. It just felt like we were just catching up.
Yep.
Um, and I do like to end my episodes with this question, and who knows, maybe next year I'll have a different question, but I like to ask guests about an act of kindness that stood out to them or, that just had a meaningful impact on them.
Um, it's funny, and this one oddly just happened to me this past weekend. We had a huge snowstorm here in Chicago. We're based out of Chicago, and it was honestly at one of my properties, and it was on a Saturday. We had a big snowstorm that came in, and my site teams, my maintenance guys, of course, they have to do snow removal. And it's the worst part of their job. They hate it so much. I know they hate it. Yes, they get overtime, but they also have families, and I hate it for them. And a bunch of our guys had just left, and I just saw his name's Clayton. I just saw him leaving, and I literally saw him only because uh, at times I stay at one of our properties because I have a home somewhere else, and I was staying there, and I was just getting back, and I just saw him leaving because I know what car he drives, and I saw a lady get stuck, and I saw him pull past. I saw him leaving. He drives back around, gets out of his car, helps this lady leave, and and it was just incredible that I know the last thing he wanted to do was pull his car back around and help
Mhm.
somebody, and he did. So I just thought it was just incredible that he did that. So, um, and I know he was exhausted because he had been, and I was getting home at like 9 o'clock at night, and he'd been there all day long shoveling snow. The last thing he wanted to do was get out, pull his car back around, and so that was my act of kindness. And he's an incredible guy, anyways. So that was my act of kindness I liked.
That's a nice one. I mean, because I'm just imagining like being on the receiving end of it, right? You're stuck and
Right.
then, here comes what's his
Yeah.
name?
Clayton.
Clayton. Here comes Clayton to the rescue,
Yep.
right? And he's tired, but he's
Yes.
just like, you know what? This is
This is the right thing to do.
exactly. He's
Right.
like, this is the right thing to do is to turn around, not to kind of pretend I didn't see
Right.
and go home. Oh, wow. Thanks, Jim. That
You're
really kind of
welcome.
ended us on a really positive note. Thank you. Again, thank you for like sharing your perspective on balance. That's kind of the word for this episode, right? That balance between technology and people and just kind of things to think about going into 2026, right? That operators can really be thinking about and not to say that we operators won't be modernizing, but also to kind of keep these things in mind as well, right? While modernizing, but also not to lose sight of the people side of things. It's been really great to have you.
Thank you very much for my first podcast. Thank you very much. And I couldn't have had a better person to do it with.
And thank you everyone for listening. And we hope you'll join us next time. And I'll see you on the next episode.